Hello, everyone. Hi, Maya.
Hello, Sandra. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome to our session tonight. لصراحة مايا, this is a session that يعني في كتير ناس طلبتها. It's a really very needed topic. We're all waiting to listen to your advice وهيك your directions concerning how to manage the anxiety in our teens with our teens. ولكل اللي هلا they are joining و new joiners لسيرة, just take a couple of pointers before we start with Maya. نحن البلاتفورم, this has become the Sira platform. In 2 weeks time we will have a mobile app كمان. So I know some of you have some issues on the mobile. This will be solved with the Sira mobile app. يعني بس كونوا صبورين معنا شوي, patient معنا شوي. 2 weeks بيصير كمان عنا موبايل اب, بتصير احيانكم كمان تفوتوا من الموبايل. If you are on if you are accessing the platform, please make sure you are on Chrome. هلا ما راح تأثر, بس بعدين بس ننقل على rooms Chrome بتأثر للميكروفون والفيديو. مثل ما بالعادة عم نعمل this session مقسومة جزئين. هلا أول جزء وين مايا رح تحكي around 45 minutes تقريبا, و she will present the content ونحكي معكم بهالموضوع. انتوا عم تحضرونا live. The only way you can interact with us is through chat. So please make sure, لأنه we are recording right now, إذا اسمكم ما بدكم اسمكم يبين إنه عم تسألوا سؤال معين, you have the option to ask your questions anonymously. في question mark tab تكبسوا عليها وعندكم option تسألوا السؤال anonymously تما يبين اسمكم بالrecording. من بعد 45 minutes رح ننقل على روم, رح تبين عندكم يعني إذا بتطلعوا على البلاتفورم رح تقشعوا رومز فوق, وبيصير عنا روم تنخلق اسمها How to Help My Anxious Teen. بقلب هيدي الروم بيصير فيكم تحكونا through video voice كمان through chat, and we will not record. So أسئلتكم والكيسز تبعكم يلي private كمان تاني جزء من السيشن, we will get to hear it and not record it to keep the privacy. ريكوردينج فيكم من الليلة بس نخلص ترجعوا تفوتوا على ذات البلاتفورم على الراوند تيبل نفسها, بس تكبسوا عليها you can watch the session again وتحضروا ريكوردينج. كمان بشجعكم تفوتوا على اللايبرري تبعنا على البلاتفورم, بيبين عندكم بالمنيو في لايبرري. سو إذا بتفوتوا على اللايبرري عنا كل السيشنز القديمين كمان محطوطين على اليوتيوب تبعنا. سبسكرايب على اليوتيوب. رح يكون عنا كمان اشياء تولز مايا رح تحكي عنها كمان موجودة على اللايبرري تبعنا for you to access it, تقدروا تنزلوها وتجربوها تشتغلوا فيها. هيدا كل شيء بدي لكم اياه. انا موجودة معكم على الشات ويعني either through WhatsApp or through the platform. إذا حدا is facing any difficulty please let me know. Maya, without any further delay, يعني it's always a pleasure to hear your sessions, to interact with you. You're a psychologist and a certified coach, life coach. You have worked with a lot of universities, NGOs, companies على مواضيع مختلفة خاصة يعني how to live and lead a healthy life. وبصيرة you are our teen expert. عم تطلعي معنا تحكي كتير بمواضيع التينز, وكل مرة عنا موضوع أحلى من موضوع. without any further delay please go ahead Maya. أنا I'll go off camera و I'll just monitor for questions. Thank you so much as usual and good luck.
Thank you, Sandra. Before I start, I'd like to thank you personally for Sira. And this platform has helped me. Even your other speakers that come up on your platform, I go in and I attend their sessions. يعني ما في إلك قد إيه you're contributing back to everybody in our community. Thank you so much. Thank you. لأنه very few people actually do what you do. You ask us to be patient, yet at the same time you're giving us so much. But thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be working with you and be a part of your team. So I guess on behalf of myself and all the attendees, I'd like to thank you to start out with. Welcome everybody. Welcome Sandra, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. How to help your anxious teens or teens with anxiety. What a hot topic. Yani, I can tell you that being a parenting and family coach, whether it be the parents or whether it be the kids or the teenagers or the adolescents or even, university students all the way up to early adulthood. This is a very hot topic. This is something every single person in the world asks themselves. What is anxiety and how do I deal with it? Today, we're going to do a little bit of, first of all, defining what anxiety is. Before I start, let me just briefly come in and tell you who I am. My name is Maya Hawa. I am a graduate from the University of Houston in cognitive psychology. I have a certification from ICF in life and executive coaching. My niche is parenting and family, as well as youth and career. I work with a wide array of institutions, whether it be universities or schools, with corporations, with individuals. I do one-on-one sessions, I do group coaching, and it's the list goes on and on. I'm also certified from Cornell University in the psychology of leadership. I am also an NLP practitioner, and most importantly, my favorite title is I'm a mother of 3. 2 teenagers and 1 on the way of becoming a teenager. So this topic, I can tell you my 18-year-old who's about to turn 18, I wish 18 years ago, all my education or all my formation or all my experience with my career, I can say that 18 years ago, I did not know what I know today. So today, not only am I going to share with you what science says, I'm going to share with you what my clients say, but I'm going to share with you my personal experience with anxiety in my home as a parent. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to, first of all, define what anxiety is. It's very crucial and very important for us to define exactly what anxiety is. Anxiety is one of those words that's being misused at times. I have a lot of people who come in and say, my child is, suffering from anxiety. Okay, so what is anxiety? What exactly are you defining anxiety as? So today I'm going to try my best to just take exactly what anxiety is, and more so what anxiety is not, and talk about the different kinds of anxiety and why it's important to have anxiety in life at one point or another. We're going to talk about the different phases of anxiety. What does your child exhibit? What are the symptoms that you might see if your child might be having symptoms of anxiety? What is your teen going through? What's on their mind? What are they thinking about? What are they going through every day that we as parents don't know? Because as much as our children talk to us and as much as we have open communication and great relationships with our teenagers, we have to believe that there is a certain percentage of thoughts that they're not telling us. There are some thoughts they keep to themselves. So what do I look for to really understand? What are the red flags? What am I looking for when I'm thinking about, what is anxiety and what does it mean? What is behind it? What is my child going through? What is my teen thinking about when they're going through anxiety or having anxious emotions? How can I as a parent help? This is something that's extremely important as parents, and this is what I've seen over and over in my practice. We want to help. As parents, we want to be there for our children as much as we can. Unfortunately, sometimes we do it in the best way we can. However, the best way we can might not be the most suitable way. So اليوم راح أعطيكم a few tips on how, as parents, you can help your child deal with his emotions or his anxious feelings, or even his anxiety for that matter. And then we're going to go over to the round table and we're going to open it up to questions. And please come back with all your questions. I'm here to try to help as much as possible. This is, I like this quote, living with anxiety is like being followed by a voice. It knows all your insecurities and uses them against you. It gets to the point where it's the loudest voice in the room, to a point where it's the only voice you can hear. This isn't my quote. I found it online, but I loved it because to me, that's what your teens and your adolescents come into my office and describe. It's just that inner voice that's always with them. It's with them when they wake up. It's with them when they go to school. It's with them when they come home. It's with them when they're eating. It's with them when they're in their social environment. It's with them when they're with their family, with their siblings, when they're studying, when they're about to walk into an exam, when they're going to sleep, when they're, every single thing they do. It's that inner voice inside their head that knows their weaknesses. They know that voice knows their insecurity. And that voice takes every single opportunity it can to remind our children or any individual of what their insecurities are. So this pretty much describes what anxiety is to me. What is anxiety? Anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, physical changes, for example, increased blood pressure. People with anxiety usually have recurring intrusive thoughts or concerns. And please, I do stress on the word recurring intrusive thoughts and concerns. They may avoid certain situations out of worry. They may also have physical symptoms such as sweating, trembling, dizziness, constant fatigue, or rapid heartbeat. So anxiety is, again, that voice that triggers all these emotions, all these behaviors, all these changes in a child's body. What is it that your teen is experiencing whenever they're under distress? And again, I'm going to use the word a little bit more, distress, as opposed to anxiety, because as much as anxiety, like I said, is an overused word, we want to be very careful when we say that our child is going through or our teen has anxiety. They might have anxious moments, they might have anxious emotions, they might have distressful thoughts. But before we can actually clinically diagnose somebody with anxiety, we can't call it necessarily anxiety. We can call it maybe a healthy anxiety, which is what we're going to talk about later. And there's a term for it. So whenever we are talking to our teens, and this is very important because not only does that voice talk to them, that voice is shifted and controlled and changed depending on the environment outside of them. So everything they hear, especially from trusted sources, whether it be their parents, their friends, their teachers, anybody around them, alters that inner thoughts, that inner voice. It controls it. It feeds into new words and new things that are being said to them and within themselves. So whenever we use the word anxiety with our teenagers, let's be a little bit more careful. Let's use different words because unfortunately, on another note, they are on social media, TikTok and Snapchat and all those different platforms they're on. And the word anxiety is being misused on many levels to an extent to where we don't really know when to really diagnose somebody with anxiety because it's being so misused. So as professionals, when somebody comes in, they're using the word and they've normalized it to themselves and they're living with it. And they even, I've had teenagers who come in and say, you know what, I'm OCD. What does it mean that you're OCD? What does it mean to you? And then they'll say something they read off the internet somewhere. So please, as parents, let's try to minimize, big words, as I say, as anxiety. Let's use words like distress or anxious feelings or anxious thoughts. There is a benefit to anxiety. Stress, whether we like it or not, is a part of our life. Stress can actually motivate us, push us to do better. Otherwise, we'd just be living mellow, normal, and numb. Scientists have learned that some degree of stress or even anxiety isn't necessarily a bad thing. Good stress, what we call eustress, keeps us motivated and excited about life. Eustress, or if you want to call it anxiety, you can, is that emotion that, right before you're about to walk into your basketball match or right before your teen is about to walk into a test and is prepared, knows they're prepared, they walk in, they feel motivated. It's that stress that allows them to maybe study a little bit harder. It's that stress that motivates them to just keep ambitious, have ambitious thoughts, have goals, aspire to be better, the better version of themselves. Symptoms can be difficult to manage when it comes to anxiety, but exploring and coping with anxiety can be an opportunity for self-growth. So when I, as a parent, or even I as an individual, understand what's going on with me and learn how to use anxiety or stress or the symptoms, to benefit me, then it can actually help me grow and become a better person. It can push me to do better. It can motivate me to reach for, more or higher or better or whatever it is, the next step I want to reach. Even though it may seem useless at times, there is a purpose to anxiety. These feelings and symptoms are a part of an innate way of dealing with stress, known as the fight or flight response. So it's that stressor that triggers, that response whenever we're in danger. It's very important for our children not, we don't want to shelter our teenagers and let them live stress-free and let them live without anxious behavior and without anxious thoughts. We have to allow them to be driven to do more and driven to protect themselves and driven to know when to, jump up and do something better. I didn't do well, therefore I need to push myself to do better. I don't give up. And that's the anxiety, if you want to call it, or stress that creates that drive within our teenagers to always aim for more, to not give up, to not give in to whatever difficult task they're facing. The difference between eustress and distress. Eustress refers to positive stress, it ignites a similar chemical response in the body. So the difference between eustress and distress, it's the same exact emotion. It's the same exact feeling. It's the same exact changes. The hands are sweating, they're shivering, our hearts are beating, our blood pressure might increase, but to a controlled level. Why? Because it's whatever thought I put into it. It's whatever thought I apply to these emotions that I have. And this is where, that's the fine line, that threshold between living with stress and anxiety in a healthy way versus an unhealthy way. I think somebody wrote something, how much does our anxiety affect our children? I'll get back to that in just a few minutes.
إذا بدك خلي الأسئلة للآخر
Yes,
مايا.
if that's okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The phases of anxiety in our teens, how do I know whether or not my child is, under stress or being distressed? Is it eustress? Is it distress? Is it anxiety? Should I do something, more about it? And we'll talk about the different things that you should be doing and what, the signs that you should be concerned about as a parent. So fears and worries about routine parts of everyday life. So if my teenager is worried and afraid of going to school, if worried and afraid of, not prepared for this test enough, or worried or afraid of some competition they're about to face, whatever competitive thing they're about to face, task they have to take on, how bad is this fear and how much is it affecting their day-to-day life? Irritability, they're very irritable, they're very edgy, they snap at us. No matter what we say, they're just always just ready to bite at us. This, means our child is going through something. There's something inside of them that's boiling. They're unable to deal with, they're anxious, they're distressed, they're having odd behaviors, they're irritable, they're jittery, they're just angry, just very edgy with us. They have trouble concentrating. So if you notice that your teenager, who's trying to study for an exam, and all of us know what that's like right now if you have a teenager at home, then that most of them right now are facing finals and, end of year exams and whatever it is, they also have to do whatever, program they're in, they have exams right now. So if you notice that your teenager has trouble concentrating, they sit down to study, but then they're in La La Land, or they're somewhere else, or they have to get up every few minutes and they end up going to the kitchen and to the bathroom and, using their phone and not being able to really concentrate, not being able to really read, they look at the screen, they try to read, but then they can't read. There's something hazy, there's something blurry, they're unable to concentrate. Extreme self-consciousness or sensitive to criticism. So if you walk in and say, son, or, honey, did you eat dinner today? Or did you take a shower yet? Or did you pack your bag? Or, do you know where, I don't know, this or that is? And then all of a sudden, what's wrong, Mom? Why are you being so critical? Why are you being so mean to me? What did I do? They're just ready to, they're very sensitive. They're, Hayalashi just kind of punctures into that blow up reaction. Withdrawal from social activity. So, they don't have exams and everything is fine and school's going. And then all of a sudden you find out that for the past 3 weeks, your child at home or your teen hasn't been participating or hasn't been going out with their friends or hasn't been active socially at school. They're isolating themselves. They might be going to the library instead of actually participating in recess. They haven't been going to their, after school practice. They haven't been sitting in groups in class. They're just sitting on their own. So just withdrawal from anything social, anything at school, anything socially outside of school. When we're sitting at home as a family, your teen tends to just go and sit in their room as opposed to, participate in family time, dinner time, family activities. Avoidance of difficult or new situations. So anything that might be, any change that they might be facing, they avoid it. They procrastinate, they avoid it. They don't want to, they try to just come up with excuses. We all have that. We all have that teenager or that child at home who has something they have to do, and then we tend to see that they just keep blowing it off or procrastinating it or avoiding it. And it's just anything new, anything change, anything different. As human, as anybody who, even ourselves, we know that any change is a change. And if the student or if the teen is not equipped and ready and has the right tools to deal with the change, then they automatically just kind of shy away and hide behind the fear. And that fear makes them avoid it or procrastinate or not do it or come up with excuses to not have to do it at all, just run away from it. If you notice a change in grades, if your student was a B student and all of a sudden, or slowly and gradually, you're starting to notice that their grades are dropping. Are they, is there something going on? Is it an exam? I had a student who was doing really well on all her quizzes, all her homework, all her projects. And then when it came to exams, she would just do really bad. But then the quiz and the project were the same exact material, or even the participation in class and the homework were the same exact material as the test. So, that to me is, what's going on? What do we need to deal with? Why is this child not able to take the exam? What is it about the word test? What is it about test that, creates this behavior or just this, drawback from them? So when we notice dropping in school refusal, if they're having something socially that they might be facing at school, or even if their grades are dropping and they come up with excuses not to go to school. And I always tell parents, a child can say, I have a fever, I can diagnose it. I can get a thermometer and I can, check their temperature. But if child says things, and I always say 2 things, and that's a stomachache and a headache, those are the most common reasons children use to get away from something and, to not go to school, to not go to a specific event, whether it be socially or academically or athletically. And when they use those 2 things repetitively, I'm not discounting the fact that they could have headaches and they could have stomach aches, but if it's happening recurring, if this is something that's becoming chronic, they come up to you on several occasions, try to connect the dots. Does it have anything to do with something else? Is it something that they're shying away from or avoiding? Because stomach aches and headaches, we can't diagnose. We can give them medication and they can still say they still have a headache. We can go and take them to the pediatrician, but then they can continue to say, I have a stomach ache. Plus, those are 2 stress-related symptoms. Whenever we're stressed, we tense up, therefore we get headaches. So also, a lot of people will get stomach aches and neck aches. So whenever our child or our teenager uses those 2, I don't want to call them excuses, but reasons to shy away or to avoid something, that might be a red light or a red flag that we might just be, on the lookout for. They're always seeking reassurance. They're always seeking validation from external sources, teachers, friends, family members, parents. It's that child or that teenager who's always, saying, I studied, fi samna alik again, or Mom, are you sure my clothes are fine? Before she goes out with her friends. Or, hey, Mom, does this shirt look too tight on me? Or, hey, Mom, do you think this is cool enough to wear? Or, do you like my haircut, Mom? Or, you'll notice them send pictures to their friends. That's very normal for teenagers just to share their outfits before they go out. But if it becomes excessive and then they end up changing, 10, 15 outfits before they leave, and they're sending pictures to their friends just to always seek reassurance. And then still they leave the house frantic because they don't like what they're wearing, or they don't like the way they look, or they're unhappy with something. There might be something underlying there. We might, find something. And again, please keep in mind, as I'm going through these as these are all healthy or unhealthy. If it's chronic and repetitive and reoccurring, then it's something to be concerned about. If it's not, then it's normal teenage behavior. Teenagers will fear and get worried. They will feel irritable. There's got a lot of hormone changes. There's a lot of things going on with them. There's a lot of things they're having to accept. They're having to, get used to, these changes, these, socially, and kids are mean. And now there's social media, and there's, so much out there they're concerned about. It's not like when we were kids. They have it a lot tougher than us. So again, it's not just 1 or 2 or 3 incidents. It's recurring, repetitive. And start to look out for it. Is it repetitive when it's a specific thing they're having to do? Is it repetitive before a test? Is it repetitive before a basketball or a football match? Is it repetitive before going out with friends? Is it repetitive before going out to see grandparents? Is it repetitive before going to see something or somebody, or just whatever it is? Is it repetitive before every time we get on a plane? Is it repetitive every time we get in the car? So start to pay attention to when these symptoms are showing up, when these behaviors, are showing up, and learn from those signs. Connect the dots. I tell parents, take notes, start Monday until Monday. And, put notes in your phone and say, okay, 8 o'clock on Monday, she had this behavior. And then start to notice how often she has this or he has this behavior. If it is repetitive and chronic, then we can be concerned. If it's just something that happens once in a while, or if it's a behavior that's repeated, but for different aspects, then what's really going on? What's the underlining? It might not be anything serious, but it also might be serious. How do we know? By really observing our children and noticing what's going on with them. If you notice that your teenager is, resorting to substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, even prescription drugs, a lot of students will start to use prescription drugs, just find them in our drawer that they've researched. Again, the internet, as wonderful as it is, it does have its drawbacks, and these kids can research things and they can find ways to numb away these feelings that they're having. So just keep an eye out on that. Are they drinking? If they're of drinking age and you're okay with them drinking, are they drinking excessively? If they're, a lot of teenagers today, unfortunately, I say this unfortunately, I know it's judgmental, but, are vaping and smoking and, using substances of all sorts. Are they doing it excessively? Are we okay with it? Are they hiding it? Are we really aware of what our children are doing? Why are they doing that? Is it just to fit in, or is it really something they're trying to use to cover up another emotion? Changes in sleep patterns. I tell parents, sleep and food. These are 2 signs that we can really tell what's going on with our students, with our kids at home, our teenagers. Are they sleeping too much? Are they sleeping too little? And mind you, there are times where teenagers are developing and they will require maybe to wake up at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. Or there are times where they'll wake up super early. But if it's continuous, chronic, repetitive, reoccurring, then there is something for us to be concerned about. Same thing with food. Are they binge eating? Are they eating too much? Are they eating too much before a specific, event or task they have to take on, a test, a match, a meeting with friends? Is your child eating excessively before they go to school? Those are things we do need to watch out for. What's going on in a child's mind? This is very interesting, and I'm going to go through this very quickly, and we can always post this on the platform. Sandra will be posting a lot of things that we'll talk about today, apart from posting the actual workshop.
هيا قبل ما تنقلي على هالسكشن، بس عنا سؤالين. هلا في سؤال رح تجاوبيه بعتقد بعد شوي. عنا سؤال: how much does our anxiety affect our kids? Do they take it from us? So هيدا بس keep it in mind إذا رح تجاوبي عليها بعد شوي. في سؤال related to يلي كنت عم تفسريه: isn't the insecurity about their looks a lack of self-confidence? So كمان
Thank you, Sandra. Let me start out with the first one real quick. How much does our anxiety affect our kids? To a certain extent, a lot. Children do mimic a lot of our behaviors, and we will be talking about that in just a few minutes. That a lot of what we do, we are their role models, guys. You know, whatever we do, they will mimic us. Some kids who are susceptible will, you know, take on those behaviors. Some kids who are not will not. They'll be able to not do it. It depends on which parent also at home is this way. Sometimes children will, you know, mimic teachers' behaviors or even friends' behaviors. But parents are the main, you know, gosh, what's wrong with me today? Main source of what they mimic. So yes, if we are anxious people and we do exhibit anxious behaviors, then the likelihood of our children, especially if we let them see it, you know, sometimes we as parents can be going through a lot and we're very anxious, yet we know how to hide it. We know how to mask it. Kids can tell, even if we're masking it, but there's a certain level of anxiety that our children will mimic and they will take on from us, and they will start to exhibit it in the same exact way that we exhibit it. Actually, I've seen that happen. The insecurities about their looks or lack of confidence, it can be, or it can just be change in their bodies. You know, how do we work on that? By validating who they are, explain, you know, trying as much as we can to have open communication with them, and you know, understanding, you know, what is it they're thinking about when it comes to their insecurities? Is it that they're insecure about a specific thing in their bodies? Is it that they're comparing themselves with others? With social media today, these, you know, a lot of teenagers, and both boys and girls, are seeing things, and you know, we've been talking about it over and over, whether it be parents or professionals, that what you see is not the reality, and there's now the movement with the reality, you know, no more filter and all that, but still everybody is using filters, and what they're seeing is not reality. So is it a lack of confidence? It can be. Is it something developmental? It is. It depends on how severe their insecurity is. If it's stopping them from leading a normal day-to-day life, then yes, we need to work on their self-confidence. If it's something about, you know what, I don't have enough clothes, Mom, you know, your typical 15-year-old walks into your room and says, Mom, I don't have any clothes. And you walk in and her closet just literally falls out at her because she has so many clothes. Then it's just, you know, a spur of the moment, you know, imbalance of chemicals and hormones that she's going through. So again, it depends on how bad the insecurities are, how severe they are, and how much they're coming up and reoccurring when she's talking about them. What's going on in our teens' mind? Children who tend to suffer from distress or anxious behavior will go into a thought of like all or nothing. I'll give you an example. I'm going to give live examples just so I can give you an idea of it. I didn't get into my first choice of school, so my hopes for high school or for university are totally dashed. If I didn't get an A, then I'm a failure. So it's either the best or it's nothing else at all. You know, either I'm going to do the best or I'm going to get nothing at all. Emotional reasoning. I feel lonely, therefore no one likes me. I feel afraid to go in the elevator, therefore elevators are dangerous. So it's that emotional reasoning that they allow the emotion that they're going through in the moment to resonate or to manifest into a thought that they can relate to or identify with. You know, I feel lonely, therefore no one likes me. No, you feel lonely because you're sitting at home and there's nothing going on right now. It doesn't mean that no one likes you. Overgeneralization. This person didn't want to hang out with me. No one ever wants to hang out with me. You know, they overgeneralize, they maximize whatever it is they're going through. You know, they blow it up, they overthink it, and then it rolls and it rolls. And I always tell, you know, whenever teenagers come to me, I always give them the example of, you know, if I stand at the very top of the mountain and I hold a stick of hay, you know, or some dust at the very top of the mountain, and I throw it down and it rolls down the mountain, by the time it gets to the very end, it's going to be a ball of, you know, a hay or a ball of dust. And that's what teenagers are going through in their minds, be it hormonal, be it emotional, be it what they're going through, be it stress, be it distress, be it eustress, or be it anxiety. They're going through, these ideas are going through their mind. You know, it's just over and over and over again. And then they allow it to become reality. And then they start thinking it over again. And then they identify and relate to it as who they are and their identity. Labeling. I feel down trying to score the goal in soccer I fell down trying to score in football today. I'm a horrible klutz. I don't know how to play football. So it's anything they say that's just uninteresting. They go from, I'm a good player to, because I made a mistake today during the game, I'm a klutz, I'm a horrible player, I'm the worst player in the world. I can't play football anymore. Fortune telling. I know I'm going to do horrible on this test. When I work with university students and I do their workshops on, and it's always around the midterms and the finals, I walk into the room and I cannot tell you how much I feel the tension of these kids, what they're going through. It's just they're anxious. They're looking at their watch. They're listening to me and they're wanting to take everything because they're enjoying the workshop. But at the same time, they're so anxious. They're jittery. ما بيقعدوا بكرستهم بيصيروا بيحوروا بيدوروا. قبل ما يفلوا بقول لهم, I know you're going through your midterms right now, so I'm going to let you out 5 minutes early. I always tend to do that when they're exam times. And I tell them, hey guys, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Before you go to the test, just look in the mirror and tell yourself something. Half of it is knowing the information and half of it is knowing that you know the information. So whenever our children go into that mindset of fortune telling, they allow the stress or the fear to take over the knowledge. And, then they forget that they're good at football. They forget that they're good at, whatever it is they're doing. And then they go into this, they start telling themselves, it's like, they have this magic ball and they start making up these own ideals and idealistic thoughts about themselves. And it goes on and on and on. And I hear it in my office. They sit in front of me and they talk to me and they talk about it in all aspects of their lives, not only about school, but about everything, guys. Mind reading. I'm talking and the person I'm talking to doesn't seem to be paying attention. So they don't like me. I was walking in school. She walked next to me and didn't look up from her phone. So she doesn't like me. Mind reading. They think they can read someone else's behavior and make assumptions, and then they make it about them, and then it becomes an anxious thought, and then it, rolls and rolls again, and again, that haystack going down. Catastrophizing, yes. This party is going to be the worst experience ever. This test is going to be the hardest test I've ever taken. This trip is going to be the worst trip. This day is going to be the most horrible day. We've heard our teenagers say this over and over and over again. Again, if it's about the same thing, we start to feel concerned. Minimizing. I did well on that one test, but that's because I was lucky that day. It's not that I'm good. It's not that I did well. It's just I got lucky. I scored, 20 points on that game last week. I think I was just lucky that day. I was having a good day. The other team wasn't good. It was just luck, pure luck, or the other team didn't know how to play. Therefore, that's why I scored that well on that game. Personalizing. If I haven't demanded so much of my parents, maybe they wouldn't be getting a divorce. So they tend to personalize everything that's going on. Had I not been late to class twice, that teacher wouldn't have not liked me. Had I not worn that outfit that my mom bought me to the party, then those kids wouldn't have stopped inviting me to that party or the next party. Imperatives. Teenagers talk with a lot of shoulds and musts. So they say, I should do this. I must do this. And when they use imperatives like that, they put so much stress on themselves and so much anxious thoughts. And then, I should do this. I must do this. I shouldn't do this. I mustn't do this. I should have done this. I should have done that. Keep an eye on that. If they're overusing those words, they're putting too much pressure on themselves. And that pressure can be stressful, and stress will turn into anxiety if we don't control it to a certain extent. Anybody have any questions? Okay, this is the part that is your turn, guys, parents. What your teen doesn't want to hear. So most parents, and I say this with zero judgment because I'm a parent and I've done all of these, because we as parents don't know what to do. We see our child, we see their behavior changing. We see the pattern of behavior reoccurring. Yeah, we have no idea what to do with it. We have no idea how to deal with it. So what do we say? You know what? Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. It's going to be okay. You're saying this to your child. I'm saying this to my son. And guess what my son is thinking? It's not going to be okay. And I am going to worry about it. And the more you tell me not to worry about it, the more I'm going to worry about it. Don't sweat the small stuff, worry about the big stuff. Oh, look at that. I put that twice. Just do it. Just go and get it over with. It doesn't take that much. It's just one test or one game or one party or one event. Calm down. Telling a child to calm down, or a teenager, means you're telling them they don't have the right to feel the way they feel. Guess what? You think you're stressed? I'm stressed out too. And the more you get stressed, I'm your mom or I'm your dad, and it makes me more stressed. So this is not what your child wants to hear, guys, because any of these means you're not validating his emotions. He's not validating his anxious thoughts or his anxious behaviors. It's telling him, you know what? If you want. And I know that we all do it. I'm, guilty as charged as well, because we don't know what to do. We don't know how to deal with our children's anxious thoughts or behaviors or feelings. So what do we do? First of all, identify the differences. Allow yourself, first of all, educate yourself on what is healthy and unhealthy anxiety. There is healthy anxiety. Eustress is a healthy form of stress. Whether we want to call it anxiety or stress, it is the healthy kind of stress. We need a little bit of stress in our lives. That's what motivates us. Like I said earlier, we need eustress in our lives. How we turn or how we control the anxiety from becoming anxiety and allowing it from the distress, I should say, and how do we control it from going from eustress to distress, is what we say to ourselves and how we deal with it and how we externalize whatever it is we're dealing with. So, our child has a test. They're stressed out about it. They're having all the symptoms. They're about to go to bed. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had this happen many times in my own home. And they walk into your room at 11:30 p.m. They wake you up if you're asleep and they say, Mom, I'm scared of the test tomorrow. I'm not ready. What's going on with that child? He went to bed or she went to bed. They studied, they prepared, they know the information. We're talking about the child who actually is ready for whatever task they're about to face. But what are they doing? They're afraid of the moment. They're fearing going in there and blacking out. By me telling my child, Khalas, you studied, you're okay, go to bed, I'm not helping them. What I need to do is tell them something like, you know what? I understand you're scared. Let's try to understand why you're scared. What is it you're worried about? What is it that is creating this emotion in you? What's going on through your mind? Try to identify the triggers. Let your teenager know what triggers, that pop, that rapid heartbeat, that increased blood pressure, the sweating, the jittery, the fear. Stress can make us feel as if we can't even see, can blind us to a certain extent to where we become hazy. Try to help your child as much as possible. And I'm going to provide you with some tools in a bit on what, how exactly to help your child identify what his triggers or her triggers are. Understand what your teen's coping mechanism are. We all have an innate way of dealing with stress. It's something that we are conditioned to create, or something that we are born with. Different people, and we're all born with a certain fight or flight response, but then environment and experiences and whatever it is that we go through help, develops those coping mechanisms. Try to understand what your teen's coping mechanism is. If it helps them to sleep and not study the night before the exam, then let's start doing that. If it helps them to go for a walk, then it does. If they're actually not able to identify what it is, and whatever coping mechanism they have is unhealthy, like overeating or oversleeping or undersleeping or, avoiding or procrastinating, try to create healthier coping ways for your teen, and ask you to remind them about this. Be a team in this together. Encourage healthy social media use, guys. Anxiety is triggered by social media to a certain extent. You know, a lot of these kids are going through a lot of what they're going through because of social media. I can tell you, the studies say it, I say it, my kids say it, every kid that comes into my office says it, every group I've worked in says it. Social media is not helping our children's anxiety level, whether it be body image, whether it be academic level, whether it be athletic level, whether it be competitive level, whatever it is, social media is not helping. So try to encourage as healthy as possible social media use. Keep an open dialogue with your teen. Have a moment in the day, every day, whether it be 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or even an hour. If you have, you know, you can spare that much. If you're driving them somewhere, if you can sit down and have dinner together, if you can, you know, have a routine where, for example, I tell parents, you know, as your children are getting ready in their rooms, just kind of, you know, grab your coffee and go and sit with them in the morning. Or as they're getting ready for bed, just kind of do. Sorry, I put my timer to make sure I don't go over. You know, use that time, try to create that downtime with your student, with your teen, and listen to them. Have that open dialogue, share with them what you're going through to a certain extent without creating anxiety. But the more you have an open dialogue with your teen, the more that open stream of communication helps you understand what's behind the behavior that they're going through if they are starting to exhibit signs of anxiety. Reassure your teen that anxiety can also serve as a protective emotion. So, you know, teach them about fight or flight, teach them about eustress, tell them that these are important things. It's what we do with it and how we define it and how we live with it that changes what it becomes eventually. Use active listening skills. And this is something I say in every single workshop when I give a workshop having to do with teens. I can tell you that 9 out of 10 teenagers that come into my office sit in front of me and tell me, Mom doesn't listen. Dad doesn't listen. My teenagers say, Mom doesn't listen. Dad doesn't listen. Actually, they say Mom doesn't listen. Why? Because a lot of parents who call me and tell me what the dialogue they had between their kids is, I told her this and I asked her this and I advised her this and I told her this. And after they talk, I asked them, okay, what did they say? And turns out the teenager said very little. So whenever it is they're going through a stressful thing, you know, whatever it is they're going through that might be stressful, instead of telling them, you know, when I was your age, I went through that. And I know, you know, it was really hard. But you know what, I did well and you can do well. They don't care what you went through. They do not care how you dealt with it. You can tell them, you know, I've been there. Would you like me to share my experience with you? You know, tell me about what you're going through so I can kind of try to understand if similar to what I went through, but don't spill over your experiences to make it theirs. Listen to them, active listening. And prepare how to handle difficult situations. Try as much as you can with your teenagers, and these are some of the tools also we're going to be working on in a minute. I'm going to provide you with in a minute to handle difficult situations. The more we give them the tools to prepare whatever it is that's coming over, you know, coming later on in their lives, the more we provide them with the strength to face any difficult situation they go through. Highlight your teen's strength instead of their weaknesses. And, you know, somebody asked earlier about self-confidence. Yes. You know, a lot of us don't notice, you know, we'll be sitting with our teenagers and we'll say, you know what, you need a haircut. And then we'll be talking to somebody else. And, you know what, you didn't brush your teeth very well today. And then we'll be talking to somebody. By the way, how did you do on that test? You know, we tend to, as parents, because we want what's best for our children, we tend to criticize a lot. And criticizing is highlighting their weaknesses. Try to talk about their strengths. You know, I think, you know, let's talk about your strengths. You know, tell me what you're really good at, you know, or say something like, you know, I noticed yesterday while you were studying, you really did a good job. You know, you sat at your desk for 30 minutes and you really focused. You know, I'm really proud of you. You know, try to talk as much as you can about your strengths. And, you know, I said the words, I'm proud of you. I take that back. I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. And I hope that you're proud of yourself. You know, you should really be proud of yourself. Try to, you know, allow them to create that inner motivation and that inner pride and that, you know, that satisfaction to be an inner and not need validation from mom or dad. So I take back the words, I'm proud of you. I would say more, you should really be really proud of yourself. Be aware of the expectations you set. You know, a lot of people will come and say, you know, I think my daughter is a perfectionist. Yes, you know, she might be a perfectionist. And we as parents want what's best for our children. But sometimes we set really high expectations for our kids. You know, we want them to be the best student and the best athlete and, and the best behaved and, have all the extracurricular activities and have the right social circle and just, do you remember being teenagers? It was tough. And these kids have really high expectations, and there's a lot of competition today between children because of social media and because of schools. And the world is becoming more competitive, I know, and we do want them to always drive and aspire to be better than, whatever it is. But I always tell parents, what, don't tell your teenagers to be better than this or that, tell them just be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. How can you be a better version of yourself today? And let them put their own expectations. And yes, of course, telling your child that, I only expect a 98 on a test can be a good thing, but at the same time, you're creating a lot of stress. You're putting a lot of stress when it comes to that particular exam. I expect you, or, I know you can win this fight. Yes, not necessarily. I know you can try your best in this fight. Just stuff like that. Just those little things we say can create perfectionism within our kids. And the more we, create that inner perfectionism and that drive for perfectionism, the more they will, need other people's validation, and they will be affected by people's judgment and just live to get validation and fit into everybody's expectations around them. And that's not what we want to raise into adults. We want them to be comfortable in their skin. Know when to seek professional help. And I'm going to talk just a few minutes about how and when to seek professional help. I'm not belittling what anxiety is. I know anxiety is a very big thing. And, I've seen many people go through it, and I know how difficult it is when they get to the point where it's a diagnosis and, they're clinically diagnosed with anxiety. We do want to avoid those things. But that does not mean that if our child is having a stressful week or a stressful month or even a stressful school year, that they're facing anxiety, or that they're ready to be diagnosed with anxiety. Yes, look for the red flags. Yes, work on the right tools in order to help your child but separate themselves, keep whatever experience they're going through external and not internalize it. How do we do that? We strengthen their inner strength. We give them motivation. We provide them with support. We listen to them, and we provide as much guidance as possible with as little advice as possible by just listening to them and seeing what their needs are. I know I've gone over time, so I'm going to go through these very quickly, guys. So what is, severe, chronic, or abrupt shift in behaviors, and when should I be concerned? Excessive sleeping or insomnia, difficult sleeping, or frequent nightmares. If you see your teenagers, coming into your room frequently, having nightmares, or, if you go into their room at 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, whatever it is, and they can't sleep, or the other way around, if they're sleeping all weekend long. And again, we're not talking about your typical 17 or 18-year-old who sleeps in on Saturday or on Sunday. We're talking about having a really hard time waking up in the morning and having a really hard time doing, living the day-to-day expectations of a normal, behavior. Abandonment of loss of interest in favorite pastimes or activities. If your typical teenager or adolescent is, his whole life he's been interested in a specific thing, or for the past year he's been interested in something, and all of a sudden these interests are changing, and he's just disassociating with them completely. If your child plays tennis, or if your child, bounces a ball and plays basketball or football, or reads a book, or watches movies, or, likes to go and hike, or likes to go and ski, whatever it is your child is doing, if all of a sudden, or if gradually you start to notice that there's an abandonment or a loss of interest in this specific thing, and it's not replaced with something else that's similar and that, gives it that same pattern of lifestyle that replaces something else. If just completely, like, for example, if they're athletic and they stop being athletic, if they're academic and they stop being academic, if they're social and they stop being social, that is reason to be concerned. Unexpected or dramatic decline in academic performance. Mishani is a sa'atu fahsan wa fahsin. Mishani is that your 16-year-old daughter all of a sudden is into her, appearance, and, into boys and into being social butterfly and her grades dropped from a B to a C, that means, oh my goodness, she's having anxiety. Really try, and I'm not undermining your intelligence, but just be very careful in what that means. We put so much weight on academic performance. And then whenever they're not doing well, we start to create stressors and distressors and stressors and distressors. We want to avoid that. If there is something extreme drop in academic performance or decline, just something, just change, just keep an eye out. Weight loss or weight gain. So if your child is gaining too much weight or losing too much weight, loss of appetite or increase. I know there's a lot of this or that, but anything extreme, as you'll notice, extreme mood changes and confused thinking, all of a sudden your teenager is, and it's not the normal teenage behavior of being irritable. A typical teenager will be nice to their mom or their parents 10 out of 20 times. If they're nice and they're agitated, I'm sorry, if they're not nice and they're agitated, 19 out of 20 times, occurring, repetitive, ongoing, there's a reason for us to be concerned. Substance abuse, and this is very big, guys. We need to really be on the lookout for this. If your child repetitively talks about suicide, sometimes they'll come and ask questions about it, and a lot of students will hide, a lot of teenagers, I'm sorry, I say students because I have students who come in, a lot of teenagers who will talk about these topics by hiding behind them. Mom, I saw something on TikTok, or mom, a friend of mine was talking about this, and they'll throw words here and there to just kind of gather our thoughts on it. So whenever your teenager does that, just kind of say, why don't you tell me your opinion on it, instead of actually giving them your opinion. So they're trying to get your opinion on it because they want to see what your views are, and they want to see how willing you are to actually listen to them saying that, what, I'm having these thoughts. So instead of giving your opinion, ask them, why don't you give me your opinion on it? What do you think about it? What are your thoughts on it? Or come here, let's research it together. Sorry, headaches and stomach aches. We talked about those later. Routine lethargy and ongoing tired. If you hear them ongoing, and I'm not talking about period of exams, I'm not talking about when they're going through something very competitive, I'm talking about continuously occurring and reoccurring lethargy. مش يعني بيتعبوا وقت بكون عندهم فحوصات بس على الويكند بينزلوا بيلعبوا بيروحوا بيسهروا بيعيشوا حياتهم. This is not routine lethargy. If there's ongoing fatigue, then there's something to be concerned about. Frequent tantrums, common, and this is mentioned in several different ways, because when you notice that your teen is just always throwing a fit, always defensive, always argumentative, you might want to look out for that. Those are red flags. These are reasons to go and seek professional help. Aggression, if they're very aggressive with their siblings, with their friends, with their teachers, with you, with any of their surrounding. And then harm to self or others. With the pandemic and isolation and lockdowns, we saw a lot of self-harm occur. And self-harm, a lot of people think it's just about when they start to cut, their arms or their thighs, their wrists or their thighs. Self-harm has multiple facets. The most common ones are excessive biting of the nails, and I'm talking about excessive, bloody nails, pulling of the hair, pinching, and usually they'll pinch between their thighs because that's something they can hide. But we're talking about pinching to an extent of blue. They bruise severely, or slitting wrists, cutting, just with a knife, cutting, or with a razor, cutting the wrists, or under, between their legs. And that's, that's a whole different topic. We're not going to talk about that too much, but these are reasons to believe that our child is going through anxiety. And these are reasons to be concerned. And this is when we start to call it anxiety. Otherwise, it's healthy stress. It's distress, but it's also eustress. And what we do as parents can either make it go towards anxiety or contain it and make it, creating resilience and creating strength within our children. Some tools, very briefly. I know, Sandra, you're probably saying, Yalla Maya. Tools to use with your team. This is a very interesting tool, and Sandra will be posting all these tools on the platform. What's within your control, what's things that you cannot control. I'm sorry, things are out of your control, things that you can control, and things you can influence. So when you just print this out or just draw it, set it in front of your student, whatever it is they're going through, if they have an exam or if they have a competition or whatever, and you sit it down or whatever it is they're going through socially or what have you, what are the things that are not within my control? Yes, I don't know what's coming on the test. What are the things that are within your control? Well, I can study the material prepared for me. Okay, great. Or what are the things within your control? I've attended class. I know, I have the material. How can you influence it? By studying, by maybe asking friends, so as soon as they actually write this, and the power of writing is amazing with kids, whenever they do these tools and they actually write down what they can do, they organize their thoughts, they map out their thinking, they write it down. It's no longer that little tiny speck of dust that's rolling down the mountain. It's stopped somewhere. I know what to do with it. I've mapped it out. And then we help them through build whatever it is they have to do to start working on it or influence it, per se, as we can say, as this says. The CBT model, show this to your kids. This is what I do at work every single day with those teenagers that come to my office. I tell them, what is the thought you had? And what is the feeling you had? And as a result, what behavior did you have? And it all comes back to that thought. Cognitive thinking is extremely important. What is it that, name the thought? Let them, tell you what is the thought they had that created this anxious feeling, or, that made them black out before they walked in the test. What were the thoughts they had? And how can we face the next task that we're about to face and control those thoughts? What can we replace those thoughts with? So just doing this with your kids is very powerful. This is the CBT model. I went to university to basically learn how to deal with kids, and not minimizing it, but just what is the thought? What is the feeling I have? I have this thought, and it triggers, this thought is a trigger that creates sadness, fear, anxiety, whatever it is, distress, whatever it is, they're using words to describe, and kids use big words, I can tell you that. And then what do I end up doing? What is the outcome? What behavior comes out of these thoughts? And then we learn together as, with our children, to sit down and actually replace those thoughts. And my best advice, I can tell you that when they sit in front of me in the office, I don't replace the thoughts, they replace them. So whenever the thoughts are generated from within, they're convinced. It's not advice, it's self-driven decision-making. So instead of telling them, okay, well, instead of this thought, can you think this thought? They're not listening to you. That's advice. Tell them, okay, so instead of that thought, what can you replace it with? So you've done the what you can control, what you can influence, and what you can't control. Now replace those thoughts. What can you replace them with? And what feelings do you need to remember to make sure that don't arise because you've replaced those thoughts? And with practice, this will eventually become habitual with them, and that we would have controlled the outcome of most of their behaviors, actually. These are 3 tools that Sandra will be putting. And kids love colored stuff. So worry versus anxiety, worry and anxiety, let your child really understand, print this out, use it repetitively every time they have a task or anything they're going through. On the weekend, sit down with them. If they don't really want to, because most teenagers don't want to do things like this, try to just ask them these little things, these little questions, these, active, like hammering at them, just as subtle as possible to kind of get them to think, let them think it through. This is something really interesting. And if you really print this out and put it in front of your child whenever you feel that they might be exhibiting anxious behaviors. And guys, when they come to our office and we work with them, this is what we do. We work with them in order for them to find ways to deal with their anxiety or their stressors for that matter. And then the worry log, whatever it is they're having to deal with, let them give it a sentence. Let them give whatever concern they have a definition, and then go through these questions. Does the problem exist now in the external world? Is it really there? If yes, can it be changed? This is back to control and not control. What does the worry push you to do? Whatever it is they're going through, let them write it down. Let them answer these questions. And trust me, by the time they get to the bottom, they've really minimized whatever fear they had. You know, that initial thought has really been contained and they've replaced it with other thoughts. So these are very powerful tools that we work with when we work with kids. The good news is anxiety can be successfully managed. And just like any thought that we can create in our minds and we give a definition to, anxiety or anxious thoughts or anxious behaviors or whatever it is that's causing us distress can be redefined. And that inner voice, as we said at the very beginning, can start to become more of a happy voice and a positive voice and a voice full of affirmations and confidence and, you know, believing in yourself type messages that the children might be saying to themselves. So thank you guys. I know I took way over time. I apologize, but I really wanted to go through all of these. Sorry, Sandra.
It's okay. It's always really a lot of beneficial info. The last question before we move to the room. هلا شوي الكويستشن برات هيدي السيشن. I don't know if you want to comment quickly, Maya. قبل ما ننقل على الرooms so that people can ask us live their questions. How to have a healthy relation between the teens and their younger siblings? Any tips? I know it's a different topic, but if you can comment quickly, and then we can move to the rooms ونرجع نحكي عن ال
Sure.
anxiety.
A lot of what I see is a lot of teens will say, you know, I'm fed up with my younger siblings, you know, they're whatever it is, you know, the complaints are quite there. The best way to do it is to find common ground. Whenever we're trying to work on, you know, sibling relationships, the first thing I tell parents is try to find a common ground, a common interest, something that they could actually find in common with, you know, whether, you know, if we've got, you know, girls and boys, you know, we try to say, you know what, why don't you help her do this? You know, why don't you help her learn how to do this? You know, but then again, there's a very fine line with something called parentification. We need to make sure that a lot of times the teenagers will come to me and they'll feel that they are over responsible for their siblings. And this is why they just kind of go into defiance behavior and they don't want their siblings around. Or it could be that, you know, they're in that developmental stage where they think they're too cool for everybody. And, you know, they're just not, you know, their siblings are just, you know, little annoying nuisance. Find common grounds, you know, and it could be something from sports to video games to arts to interests, you know, whatever it is, you know, find common ground. And as much as possible, let your teenager feel like they are a role model for their siblings. And by giving them that satisfaction or by giving them that validation that, you know, you've done such a wonderful job doing this. Do you think that it's something you can help your sibling learn from you? Or, you know, you can help your sibling get through, or you can just be there for them for support, you know, by just giving them validation as much as possible without making them feel that they are to be held responsible for their siblings.
All right. Great. Thank you so much, Maya. رح ننقل على الروم. So please يعني هلا رح نطلع من هيدي الراوند تيبل، رح تقشعوا على المنيو تبع البلاتفورم، رح تقشعوا منيو اسمه رومز. بقلب الرومز ما في غيرها هيدي السيشن اسمها How to Help My Anxious Teen. تنكفي بمحل تاني so that we stop the recording. فيكم تسألوا الأسئلة لايف. Just by raising your hand رح يكون عندكم option raise hand. فيكم تحكونا through voice, through video. فيكم ما تطلعوا على الفيديو بس تحكونا بالميكروفون، وفيكم كمان through chat. وبقلب روم we don't record at all. So رح نسكر معكم هون بقلب الراوند تيبل وننقل على الرومز. وقت تسكروا رح يطلع لكم a small survey دقيقتين. Just fill it quickly so that you help us get better. وناطرينكم نحن بالروم. Thank you so much, Maya. We're eager to continue the discussion. خلينا ننقل سوا على الروم.
يلا.
Thank you.